They took a piece of your brain out?
It felt like it. I was like gritting my teeth because I was not sure if they were going to go for the whole mummification embalming where they just take the hook and just start swirling it around so they can pull your brain out the nostril, because that's about where I felt.
Welcome to My Hill to Die On,
The answer to everything.
episode 42.
Everyone has things that they're passionate about.
Things we want our friends to try and experience.
So we've convinced each other to try different things.
And we talk about these experiences to see if we can get just one more person
To join us on our hill to die on. It's been an interesting day is all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Basically, it started with yesterday having gotten back from the final day of work before the summer vacation, having a early-ish dinner, and then almost immediately passing out on the couch. So I woke up at 3 a.m. this morning, as one tends to do. And because I had fallen asleep immediately, the plan of finishing listening to the audiobook had to wait until today.
Oh, okay.
Oh, but it gets better, because as we know, I had to go and get my nose swabbed today.
Oh, yeah.
So I had made an appointment up in a place in Fujimino. So I take the train up there, being very good about like not getting too close to anybody, doing all that stuff. I walk to the clinic and realize upon getting there, I had forgotten one important piece of documentation.
Oh, no.
So I turned around, went back home, got the one piece of documentation I needed, and turned right back around and did the trip all over again. Which, what can I say? Fujimino is not far from where I live if you're driving. If you're taking the train, you're looking at an hour minimum, which means you take an hour train out there, then you walk to the clinic. I could have taken the bus to the clinic, but, I was like, oh, no, I'm not going to wait for the bus. I'm just going to walk it. And so I did all that, turned back around. By the end of my first loop of this, I had reached about 2.5 hours just in commuting. So I spent 5 hours today going back and forth between my house and a clinic for the 10 minutes of having my nose swabbed and waiting in a room. What can I say?
Got a lot of time to listen to an audiobook.
Well, I finished the audiobook. But I am exhausted, to say the least, because I just got back home and just went, you know what? I'm tired. I'm just tired. I can't even be bothered to clean anything right now. Oh, and here's the best part. I have to go back tomorrow to pick up the piece of paper I need.
That says you're all good to go, huh?
Yeah. All this to say, I've had some interesting past couple of days. But, I'm getting things packed up, getting things cleaned up. I still have a few more things to tidy up around the apartment, but for the most part, nothing that will take me an overly abundant amount of time.
Good.
But, yeah, as of right now, no, I'm not packed yet. And I can tell you, as soon as this podcast is over, I'm just going to go to sleep tonight, because I don't fly till... what time do I fly on Monday? I should probably double check that. Because in my memory, I leave around 2-ish.
Narita, right?
Yeah. But I might be misremembering it, and it might be like 10-ish. Because, given how things have been for me the past couple of days, I would not put it past that being the case. Oh, I have a PDF of the itinerary on my desktop, so...
That'll be easier to find.
Oh, awesome. It's 5 o'clock.
Oh, lots of time.
I'll be fine. The piece of paper won't be available until 3 o'clock tomorrow anyway. So, get all the morning time to clean, get all the evening time to clean. When I wake up on Monday, finish cleaning, and mosey on over to an airport. I did, however, get an email saying that I have officially been upgraded.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. I had to pay a little bit extra for it, but you know what?
Upgraded to what?
Premium economy rather than just economy.
Oh, okay.
For ANA, which I don't know how often you've flown ANA.
Not too often.
Basically, ANA has economy, then premium economy, then business class is above that. It's basically the mid-tier. So not quite, hey, you get a full lying position, but you actually get extra room, you get a little footstool sort of thing. They also allow you access into, if I remember right, I get access into the
lounge?
lounge. Thank you. Yes, I got access to the lounge with this upgrade.
Cool.
A bunch of extra things that are very, very nice, and given how often I've talked about my love of flying, it is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're bigger seats is one of the main things.
Right, more legroom probably, right, too?
Well, wider too. And I am, especially in my shoulders, I am broad, and so like sometimes the economy class, depending on which airline you're going with, seems to be like, I feel like I'm sitting kind of condensed the entire time. And so I'd much prefer to spend a little bit extra money and be happy. How's your day been?
Pretty good. Yeah, didn't do too much today. Took it easy.
Oh, what I wish. What I wish.
Well, I'm not going anywhere, at least right away this summer, so...
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's the part of me that's like, oh, I wish I could just take it easy right now, but the other part of me that's going, you get to see your family.
Yeah,
So, the next 3 days, I am going to be constantly exhausted.
Mm.
And there's nothing I can do about it.
3 days, that's going to be pretty good, actually, if you can squeeze it into 3 days.
Well, I say 3 days. I'm saying the next 3 days, so I'll be exhausted all of tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. I'll be exhausted all of Monday, and then Monday is extra long for me. And so I'll probably also be exhausted on Tuesday. I know me, I tend to just go into a minor coma after I land from these flights, which means that I usually tend to recover after a day or two.
Yeah, the one time you went to America, when my kids were really young, it's when I had at least 2 kids. But one time we went with young kids, and they had a real hard time getting over the jet lag. They were like, yeah, it's night. We want to wake up. Because, they had slept some. And, so then we would try to put them down. And during the day, we would try to wake them up. But it was really hard one time. Well, maybe I'm just blocking out the other time. But I remember it being very difficult one time. Because, of course, they couldn't sleep. Putting them down sometimes was difficult. So we'd just go down and play games. While I'd be half dozing, but playing some games with them, and then waiting for them to become at least a little bit more tired in such a way that they could go back to bed. But that was tough. But yeah, that was the worst time recently that I've had with jet lag, because they kept waking up. I couldn't also get my body back to normal. So yeah.
Yeah. I normally recover pretty quickly from jet lag, but like I said, that's because my strategy is the first day or two that I get back, I tend to just sleep those days away. And I don't have anybody waking me up and being like, Ryan, you need to do these things, like take care of kids. Yeah, I don't have anybody who's waking me up for that. So just going into what is effectively a minor coma for 24 hours. But yeah, right now, just packing everything up, trying to get things situated. Yeah, that's pretty much my days right now. So this week, for Game Corner, I want to talk about something a little bit different. Normally, during this section, I talk about a video game that I've played or something along those lines. But today, I want to talk about a tabletop RPG that I recently played that I really, really enjoyed, that I just want to give a little bit of love to. And that game is called Blades in the Dark.
It's not a video game, though.
It is not a video game. It's a tabletop RPG. So think Dungeons and Dragons, but a different system. So that sort of playing style where you're sitting around a table, rolling dice and telling a story with your friends, just with a different rule set and a different world. So the setting is kind of a grungy, sort of like quasi-steampunk, diesel punk kind of feel, but with ghosts. So in Dungeons and Dragons, you play as heroes who are going on adventures and doing things like that. So in Blades in the Dark, you are all criminals. So in this game, you set up your character, what type of criminal they are, and then you also create what type of crew you have. So are you a crew who is more about being the upfront bruisers, or are you a crew who's more along the lines of, hey, we're going to sneak into places and rob you blind? And it is played in a way that is very reminiscent of Ocean's 11 sort of feel. Because what you do is, as you are setting up the game, you start to get ready for a heist, and then all of a sudden the game master just goes, all right, it sounds like you're going to do this, so let's just get straight into the action. You're there, and every once in a while you can call for flashbacks. So what that means is when you're in the middle of the action, you can say, hey, while we were doing this planning, I want to say that I did this one thing. So while we were in the middle of trying to plan for this heist, I contacted my friend who runs a canal boat and told him that he needed to be waiting out front so that when we needed a getaway, we could just jump into his boat. Those sort of things. So you're not actually doing a whole bunch of planning on the front end like you would in a normal heist. You're just diving straight into the action and then doing callbacks for what happened. There's a whole bunch of really cool systems with this, but I just love the whole setting and theme where you get to be a criminal organization running a bunch of heists and things like that, and then you just adapt for it, and it has that whole normal heist movie kind of vibe. I just love that game. So it's one of those things where I just wanted to give it a little bit of love because, tabletop RPGs always need a little bit of love. So if you are interested in picking up a new tabletop RPG or trying out another system outside of Dungeons and Dragons, and you want to try being a criminal for a bit, I do recommend playing Blades in the Dark. It is a pretty simple system, very easy to pick up, very easy to get together with a couple of friends and play. I think it's great with having one GM, and you can have as few as 2 players, or I would say you could probably go up to about 4, maybe 5 players before it starts getting a little too crazy. But as long as you are planning it out well, you could really break it up nicely if your GM is planning it out well.
Sounds fun.
It is. I got a chance to play it last week. Me and a couple of friends were meeting up to have an intermittent Dungeons & Dragons type campaign, and one of our friends had to back out. And it's really hard to play a decent Dungeons & Dragons game with only 2 players, at least in my opinion. So I said, hey, I have this system called Blades in the Dark. Would you guys be willing to play it if I ran it for you? And both the other players were down for trying it and really excited, and they dove into it, and it was excellent. Those guys also got into character really well, and think they really had a lot of fun, and I hope to play it again in the future. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about it and have an excuse to talk about it.
We can give you that excuse.
You can give me that excuse? Thank you.
So today, the book we are talking about later has a bunch of strategy going on, trying to figure out what people are doing, how best to react to the situations that could come up.
How to plan for your opponents and what they're going to do, and then circumvent what your opponents do and think 3 moves ahead. Yeah.
Well, and in the book, how to plan for your eventual demise, right?
Well, you mean you don't plan for your eventual demise constantly?
Yeah. Well, I'm not planning on being murdered like they were, but...
How many times have I told you? I always plan for the bus situation. How will somebody take over all of my half-finished code when Ryan inevitably gets hit by a bus?
Yeah, we'll have a hard time with that. We do need to do a better job documenting. I'm just glad somebody else knows it all but me now, so that's good.
So that for everything to break, the bus needs to be really good to knock both of us out at once?
Exactly. Anyway, we decided that we would pick 2 strategy games, and we're leaving this pretty broad. Not many rules on this one, perhaps. Leaving it kind of wide open, but having a good time because there are strategy things that we like, so I'm sure we'll have a good time picking.
Mm-hmm. My difficulty is, well, there are strategy games, then there are tactic games, then there are video games and strategy board games. There are just so many different strategy things that I could pick that I almost got a little inundated with choice. And so I am specifically going to try to avoid things that I have mentioned before.
Okay.
That is my number one goal, which let's see how well I do on that one.
And I was trying to figure out the definition of strategy. Which of the games that I have that I enjoy would be considered strategy? I was trying to figure that out. But anyway, why don't you go ahead?
All right. Well, the first one I will pick is going to be a video game.
Okay.
It is a game called Fire Emblem. The most recent version of this, because there have been many Fire Emblem games, is Fire Emblem Three Houses, which came out in 2019.
Oh, so pretty recent.
Pretty recent. That's the most recent one of this series, because this series has gone on for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The first game in the series came out in 1990. Yep, 1990 was the first game.
1990, so on SNES? What was that?
I believe that might be just NES. Yeah, it came out on the Famicom.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, now some people might call this one more of a tactical game, but you know what? I'm calling it a strategy game, and people who disagree with me can, just disagree, because everybody's opinions on the internet are very valid and important to me.
Well, I was wondering too, strategy, and this was the problem I guess I was having a hard time deciding, was a strategy game means that the choices you make affect the other players and how the game, not how the game turns out, because of course choices you make in a game affect how the game turns out, but have an impact on the choices the other players have to make, as opposed to, like, for instance, I wouldn't say Uno is a strategy game, even though the cards you play affect how the other players play.
Well, maybe you might disagree with this choice then, because Fire Emblem is a single player.
Single player I think is fine too, so why don't you go ahead and tell us about it first?
So Fire Emblem, specifically, let's talk about Three Houses, because that is the most recent one. The basic premise of that game is you are a teacher at a military school, and you get to choose one of three houses in which to ally yourself with and teach those specific students how to fight and be involved in war. And then things happen and plot twists happen. I'm going to avoid all the spoilers on this one, because this is very much a story-based game, and so much of it is based in that story. So I'm going to try to avoid as much spoilers as possible, is what I'm saying. Each of the three houses have characters who you can build up in battle. You can build up relationships with them, grow to know them more. And then in the individual battles, you will send your different characters that you have built up in various ways as their teacher through lining them up across the battlefield and figuring out, okay, this unit should go to this location because they will be more effective at attacking this person, and various things like that. I really enjoy this game because it is very much a just thinking about, okay, how are we going to send these troops in? But also the social interaction parts of the game are also very good, because you just tend to really like the characters for this game. All the different units that you can have in battle each have their own personalities, and you can get to know them outside of the battle. Each of the three houses also have very different personalities and different characters. For example, my favorite of the three houses is the Golden Deer.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there are three houses. One is the Black Eagles, one is the Blue Lions, and then there's the Golden Deer. The Golden Deer is, in my opinion, the best house, simply because I love those characters. Some people will argue that one of the other two houses have a more in-depth storyline or a more emotional response that you can have. But the Golden Deer have some of the best characters in that game, because they're just the house of the most cheerful people. The people who you would actually be like, yes, I want these people to be my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the people that all tend to be in Golden Deer. But yeah, it's basically you just go around building up your various characters, trying to train them so that they won't immediately die. That's the other thing in this game. When a character in your army who you have built up and grown in relationships with, if they happen to lose all their health in a battle, that character is dead.
You can't ever get them back, huh?
You cannot get them back. They are dead. And some of the choices that you make when you have to decide who you side with in various battles and things like that, some of those characters might just not support your choices, and they might end up either dead or fighting against you all of a sudden. It's one of those things where your choices do matter. It is a really interesting game. The battle system is really nice. It's just a really nice, tight battle system where you're just trying to improve your characters as much as possible. But yeah, it's one of those things where you have to be really thoughtful about where you send your troops, because if you accidentally send your favorite unit a little too far ahead, they might get ambushed by 12 units, and then suddenly your favorite unit, the person who you've been building up a relationship with outside of battle, is now dead, and you cannot interact with them anymore.
Yeah, I would say this is a strategy.
Yeah, I would say it's strategy. I really do enjoy this, and like I said, Golden Deer for life.
Sounds good.
What's your first strategy game that you'd like to bring up?
My first strategy game is going to be Sushi Go Party. Have you ever played Sushi Go Party?
Yes, I have. And I'm trying to figure out if I would define it as a strategy game, but you go ahead and...
Here's my case for that. Because you have to play the cards that will either get you the most... Well, the obvious strategy is to play the cards that get you the most points. But it's not chance, because you're not drawing out of a deck. You start slowly seeing the cards that are in everybody's hands because of how you pass things around. Sushi Go Party is a game where everybody is dealt a hand of cards, and then from that hand you pick a card you want to play in front of you, and then you pass your hand around to the next person. And so then every card you play, you get another hand. Every card you play, you get another hand. And depending on the number of players, you will see all of the cards in all of the hands, depending on how many players there are. So, for instance, one of the easier strategies is to play the card in your hand that has the most points. That works many times, but of course, most cards need to be combined with another card to earn you points, right? Some cards are nicely cumulative too. So you play one card, you get 1 point. You play two cards, then both cards count as 2 points. You play three cards, then both cards count as 3 points. They accumulate nicely. So even though the first time you play it might not be too many, but that also depends on how many cards you think there are in everybody's hands of that type, right? So there's some risk because there are some cards that take 3 to accumulate before they count for anything. So it's dangerous to play them because they might not be available, or another player might be playing them. There's a few reasons why you don't play those cards, even though if you do get all 3, they count for a lot of points. To me, I find when I play with them that my family, they like certain cards over others. So I know to stay away from those cards because I will probably not be able to pick them up because somebody else will play them. There is some strategy. Not a lot, I think, but there's some. And I think I play too ruthless, I think. I win too often. That's a bad thing to say, probably. But
I don't think that's a bad thing.
I enjoy playing, but I realize that I play for the points, and I realize that my daughters don't always play for the points. My daughters play for the cutest cards, which doesn't always mean that they're doing poorly either. One of the things I realized early on in this game was that, yes, while I do play a strategy, and I have, a few different strategies, sometimes the cutest card strategy, or even just picking a card out of your hand and playing it, not paying attention to what else is there, you could actually do pretty well with that strategy too. You're not going to win, probably, with that strategy, but you're not going to lose.
And you can probably mess up somebody else's strategy.
Exactly. So you can do poorer than that, but you'd probably have to try harder to do poorer. But so I do play a few strategies. I definitely enjoy Sushi Go Party, and I love that the game is not the same every time because you choose what types of cards you're putting in the game at the beginning, and I enjoy that too. So you can get very different outcomes depending on how you stacked the deck at the beginning with cards. You can have cards that are very hard to play, very hard to garner points. There are some cards that are very easy to garner points, so sometimes you can have very high-scoring games. Sometimes you can have very low-scoring games. So anyway, I enjoy Sushi Go Party. Do you think it's... there's only chance of what's dealt at the very beginning. It's not like a game of Rummy where there's chance in what you're going to draw every time.
Yeah, here's why I was saying I'm interested to see how you define this as a strategy game, because normally I wouldn't define Sushi Go Party as a strategy game because while you can play it strategically, it is not defined by the strategy.
I see that. Mm-hmm.
I think that's why I was going. I personally usually would consider Sushi Go Party to either be like a family or a party game or a card drafting game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, card drafting game, yeah, is what they call it.
Those would be the types of things that I would refer to that one as. Yeah, so I would usually consider that more of a card drafting game than I would a strategy game. But I can see how, because you are playing it strategically, where you would consider that a strategy game.
Mm.
So yeah, I will bring up my second game, which is a game that I recently received what is called the big box for.
Okay.
Because I had supported them on Kickstarter and ended up getting a box with essentially all of the expansion stuff and a ridiculous number of pieces. And that game is called Terraforming Mars. So, Terraforming Mars is a very, very fun game where you are a corporation who has been tasked with helping make Mars a livable environment. Just helping terraform it out of the goodness of your corporation's heart. And how you win in this game is that you have to be the best terraformer out of all of the other corporations who are all working to just make Mars a livable environment. So, how you do that is, in the base game, there is the oxygen, the heat, and the water on Mars. And to end the game, you need to get the oxygen up to a certain level, the heat up to a certain level, and a certain amount of water on the surface of Mars. And you do this through playing cards and doing all these different things. But a lot of it is just building up resources, playing your cards, and planning out your strategy based on what other people have done and what other people are going to do. So, for example, when you build a section of land or a property, so you've built a city or a forest, or you place a water tile, you get whatever's on the map at the location that you've set that tile. Mm-hmm. So you have to plan out where you're going to do that. There are also things like milestones where if you reach a certain point, you can put down a little bit of money for extra points at the end of the game to basically say, hey, guys, I want everybody to just acknowledge that my corporation should be acknowledged as the mayor of Mars because we own 3 cities already. Mm-hmm. And things like that. In addition to all this, I love the cards that are there because there's everything from, oh, I'm going to start breeding microorganisms that will produce oxygen, or drop an asteroid which will release water vapor into the atmosphere. And all these different really cool ideas and things that you can do with all your cards. And it's all about building a machine and building some sort of engine that will make a whole bunch of points for you while terraforming Mars. And that's the base game. In addition to that, they also have many expansions. One where you can go to Venus in addition to Mars. One where you can go and colonize other planets and asteroids and things like that. There's one where they add in political intrigue. There's a whole bunch of different expansion stuff. Also, I will say, in addition to everything else, the thing that I loved about the big box is they have all these 3D printed tiles. So now whenever I build a city, I actually get to pull out like a 3D printed tile of a city that sits on the map. And it's just really cool. Each corporation also has different special abilities. So thinking about how you can use your special abilities in addition to all your cards that you get is all about like planning out how your strategy is. And yeah, it's just a fun game. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love this game. It turns into somewhere between 3 to 4 hours of sitting and reading cards and figuring out what is the best strategy for you to get the most points so that everyone would acknowledge you and your corporation as having the best influence on making Mars just a great place to live.
I think you mentioned this one in our massive pick games episode we did a while back.
Did I?
I think so. I mean, it sounded good back then too.
Oh, man.
It's fine. You can pick it again. There's no rule against it.
Yeah. I only brought it up because I had the box set arrive just a week or 2 ago now. And I have already played it twice since it arrived because I have a lot of friends who I can just say, hey, guess what? You're coming over to my house tonight and we're going to play a 4-hour board game. Because that's how I treat my friends.
Yeah, it sounds like a fun game.
Yeah.
I remember thinking back then too that it was going to be fun.
Yeah, one of these days you're just going to have to find a 3 to 4 hour period where I can just get you away from all your responsibilities so we can play this game. We'll see what happens. So, what is your final pick?
My next one, I think my next one is going to be a bit of an obvious one, perhaps, but I'm going to pick Settlers of Catan.
All right.
I think this is definitely a strategy game, right? I would think that this would fall into that category for sure, right?
Yes, Catan is considered a strategy game, especially more than Sushi Go.
Sushi Go Party. And I don't play it as often as I probably would like, but I think one of the problems there is I don't often get to play it with big groups, right? Because you need at least 3 players. I have downloaded a variant of the rules off the internet for 2 players, and we have tried that a bit, but it's not the same. It does work. You take out some of the tiles and you play, but it's not as fun. I have the standard expansion pack. I don't have any of the seafarers or the cities or things. But one of the things that I like about Catan is that, I'm one that likes to build roads and go that route. At least when I began, that's what I liked to do. So I would try to do that as much as possible. But then I realized that I would be fighting my cards a lot of the time. The strategy that I take now is do whatever the cards give you. If the cards are giving you rocks and gold, then buy victory cards or whatever they're called. So I have gone more with the strategy of wherever the cards lead you, follow that. And that has worked kind of well. I don't always win still, but I just do enjoy playing. What I like about that is, I guess it took some of the strategy away, really. But at the same time, the strategy then becomes, how am I going to be able to win with the cards that I have?
Yeah.
As opposed to, I like to build the roads, and then I'll get the longest road card and things like that.
And that is a viable strategy, is basically seeing what cards you get dealt and then adapting your plan based on that.
And I think that's made the game more fun for me when I realized that, I'm not always going to be able to win via roads. I'll have to come up with another way of winning. I definitely don't like winning via cards, via like hidden victory points and things like that as much. Not that I like to be out front with all my cities. I like the building aspect of it because I like games where you build and build and build. And victory cards don't seem as much like building, even though they're worth a lot of points sometimes. But I do like now the new puzzle of, how can I win via the cards that I have? What would be the best moves?
That's the thing with games like Terraforming Mars. You get dealt a certain number of cards, and you just have to figure out, using those cards and using what resources you have, and which of these cards am I going to use to make it so that my system can actually work. It's very similar in that way.
I got some Bring Out Your Dead. They're probably not strategy, but...
Well, I got some strategy games. I got some tactics games that I want to bring up. I'm going to just focus on video games for a little bit. Just the ones that I've talked about before. XCOM, Valkyria Chronicles. Talked about both of those series before on other episodes. Great strategy games. Great fun. If I'm going to hit old classics in a special place in my heart, Final Fantasy Tactics. There's a very special place in my heart for that game. Those are the initial ones that just pop into the top of my head for video games. As for other board games, Brass. Brass is a great game. That one's all about growing industries and building industrial networks. Scythe.
I'd like to play that one.
I forgot all about Scythe. I have played so many games of Scythe. It's a great game. You're just trying to build up a engine to get all the materials you need to take over this factory. Yeah, there's just so many strategy games that I just genuinely enjoy.
Here's a question for you then. So one of the games that I was struggling with is Labyrinth. And I think that's not a strategy game. I think it's a puzzle game.
Yeah.
There are some strategic moves that you have to make, but I don't think that in this particular one doesn't make it a strategy game. Especially because, the choices you make affect your opponent, but not directly.
Do you want to know what Board Game Geek...
Yeah, does it consider a strategy game?
It is considered as a family maze and puzzle game.
Yeah. Yes, the decisions you make move the other guy's piece around, but that's not necessarily redirecting his strategy. He might have to make different decisions, but not redirecting his strategy. His objective remained the same.
His objective hasn't changed. I would say that for me feels more like a puzzle game than anything else.
I mean, it's very fun, but we'll have to talk about it another time.
Yeah, when we talk about puzzles. Any others that you really want to talk about for your Bringing Out the Dead?
No, I was thinking of a bunch of other card games, but again, I couldn't think of one where card games, a lot of them are based on chance because it's your luck of your draw. I mean, you might have some strategy, but there's a lot of chance.
But even if there's luck of the draw, I think there can still be strategy. It really just depends on what type of game you're thinking of, too.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking I enjoy Phase 10, and I definitely have strategies in mind when I play that game.
But you are right. It's not really defined by the strategy, so...
Right. And no matter what I do...
It doesn't affect
the overall goal of my players. It might affect how they play, but it's not going to affect their primary objective. I mean, I have a bunch of other fun games, but I was knocking a whole bunch out because, like, it's not really strategy.
Yeah.
I have a whole lot of kid games that are very much chance.
Well, I mean, considering who you play games with most right now, that makes sense.
There's a hilarious game that I have called Too Many Monkeys, and it is the furthest thing from strategy ever. It's complete chance. You have no choice. No, you have one choice, maybe two or three. You have a choice of where you play your wilds. You have 6 spots. You can play your wild in any of those 6 spots. Really, that's a big choice. Doesn't really affect the outcome of the game much. You have a choice of who you're going to skip if you pick a skip card. I think that's it. Everything else is just chance.
I'm just trying to think. Other games that I like to play that could be potentially considered. Villagers is one, but it's again a city building, card drafting kind of game. I also enjoyed the game Vast.
Okay.
It's interesting. That one is basically everybody is a different character and they all have different goals and they're all working towards that goal for in an asymmetric game. One player who is the cave, one player who is the dragon, one player who is the goblins, one player who is the knight, and then one player who is the thief. And they're all working towards different goals. And so it's very interesting. It can be tricky because everybody has a different game they're playing. But I do like that one.
Cool.
Bunch of random games that I decided to list off there.
All right, today we have melon soda. Melon soda is a...
it's pretty common over here.
Yeah, it is. And it's very green.
If you've ever seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and The Secret of the Ooze, it's like that level green.
But in generally speaking, it's pretty sweet too, I would say.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious. So we picked a large melon soda, 700 milliliters.
You're just trying to make up for all of the times that you got gypped out of 10 milliliters here and there.
I know, right? Well, and this drink was not expensive, which worries me a little bit because is it going to be quality? I don't know about that. We'll have to see. I don't think this isn't one of the major brands of drinks here.
Cheerio?
No.
I've not seen this brand before.
Me neither. So that's a little bit worrying.
My guess is this is going to be like the RC Cola of melon sodas.
Yeah. No fruit juice, but that's not surprising, really. I'm not sure there's fruit juice in many of the melon sodas.
Yeah, probably not. So are we going to give this a shot?
Mm-hmm. Smells like melon soda.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's more melony than normal.
I think so, too. I think it tastes more like real melon, not the melon soda flavor.
Yeah, it doesn't taste like it is melon soda flavor. It tastes like somebody was aiming for the actual melon flavor. Because melon soda flavor, it has the initial taste of melon, but none of the aftertaste of melon. And then tons of sugar.
Yes. I mean, actually, that's why when I said it smells like melon soda, the smell of this soda is usually what melon soda tastes like. But then this had the melon, like a honeydew melon taste or a cantaloupe taste.
Yeah, this actually tastes like melon because normally a normal melon soda doesn't have the melon aftertaste, but this one definitely does. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's more surprising than good.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, does the difference in melon flavor bring the rating up or down? I almost think it brings it down, actually.
I would agree. I think it brings it down because while I appreciate the attempt to have the aftertaste of melon in a soda, I think it's too much for a drink.
Yeah.
It feels like it's a bit too much.
If it was just regular melon soda, I think it would be better. That's really horrible. That the actual... Well, and maybe... If this had 2% fruit juice as opposed to no fruit juice, and it had the melon flavor, then I think, I can see what you're trying to do here. You're trying to make a real melon soda.
It just feels like too much is going on. For me, I'm going to say that the score goes down.
Yeah. 3?
I could go as high as 4, but no higher than that.
Nah.
Nah, but probably 3.
I think it's a 3 because I might not actually finish it.
Yeah.
Especially because it's 700.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous size. There's no way I should be drinking a liter of this melon sugar drink this late at night.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move on to the other one then. Whew.
Yeah, so we have, in addition to our melon soda, we have matcha Kit Kats.
So matcha is powdered green tea, I guess, right? Would you say?
Yeah, it is a traditional powdered green tea. Often, if you have seen anything about tea ceremony, that is the type of green tea that they use there. That being said, a lot of different places outside of Japan now use matcha as a type of tea for various kinds of drinks. I know, for example, when I worked at Starbucks, the matcha latte is always a very appreciated drink.
This is an interesting one, too, because I think it must be some kind of brand, but it says otona no... Actually, I don't know how to read the kanji, but it means sweet. So it's like an adult sweetness candy. Yeah, otona meaning adult.
Yeah, it's basically the adult flavor. Hey, this is a more adult-flavored Kit Kat.
Right. This is a serious Kit Kat. For the grown-ups.
This is a serious Kit Kat for serious people. Not any of that kid stuff.
Ooh, I wonder if that means this is not going to be sweet, right? That's the comment I always make.
I'm pretty sure it's not going to be sweet because usually if they have like the adult flavor, if they have that on anything, it's usually either on bitter things so they can say, hey kids, you're not going to like this.
Well, and matcha itself, the flavor is very not sweet in general. So,
yeah. Well, shall we give it a shot?
Let's see. I wonder what color.
It is a matcha color.
It is matcha colored, yeah. Much brighter than the bag. It is a bright green.
Mm-hmm.
It is not sweet.
No, tastes like matcha.
Yep, tastes like matcha. With a little bit of Kit Kat crunchiness flavored. A little bit. A hint of the biscuit inside, right? But the matcha flavor is pretty powerful.
Oh, yeah. Now, here's the question I'm going to have. I know that you normally say, oh, man, this Kit Kat is really sweet. So, given that we have something that's not really sweet, what's your reaction to it?
I feel like I'm eating tea.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the worst case scenario for matcha. I do have matcha every once in a while. That's what they serve at the sushi restaurants. And I drink it because it's what they have there. I don't always appreciate it, but I'm thirsty enough for it, so I drink it. But man, this is like the worst experience of that kind of experience.
Tell me how you really feel.
I'm not a big fan of matcha.
I couldn't tell.
This is not my flavor. I'm definitely growing to like it more and more, though. There used to be a sushi restaurant that was closer to us that had a drink bar, and I loved that because, hey, I could have Coke, but that one closed down, and now all the rest of them have matcha. So I have still not quite gotten there, but I do at least drink it now.
I'm sorry. Coke with your sushi?
I know. It is. I always felt like I was the only one that got the drink bar.
I'm straight judging you on that one.
I was the American there, that's for sure. I always am. Now I do drink the matcha. I have grown to like it more and more, but you put the matcha powder in the hot water, and it dissolves nicely, but some of it will settle, and if you don't stir it well enough, then the dregs are pretty bad. At least not my favorite anyway. And this tastes like you're just eating the dregs. It's not what I picture as the best part of matcha. Let me say it that way. I enjoy matcha the way I drink it, but not all like this in a candy bar. Disappointing all around this time.
Yeah, well, we can't all have winners all the time.
This might be the worst Kit Kat we've had, though, I guess, huh?
I don't know if it's the worst Kit Kat we've had. We've had some pretty interesting Kit Kats.
Yeah. I think banana caramel was way up there.
I don't know. I liked banana caramel.
Oh, did we? Okay.
No, I did. You didn't.
Oh, that's right. You did. Yep.
Strawberry and sparkling wine, hands down. That was the worst.
Yeah, I remember that one being bad.
Everything after that has been better than that. And I'm sure you're going to love next week.
I don't eat Japanese pudding in general.
So this week, for our main media, I wanted to have Nate read Book 2 of Mistborn, because I already got him started on the series and thought, hey, let's just keep working our way through, as I do like Brandon Sanderson and his books, and before I get him started on any other series, I should probably have him actually finish one. Just because, I shouldn't make Nate start 4 different series and not finish a single one.
Well, and this was my favorite book from last year in our favorites of 2020.
Yes, The Final Empire was his favorite book from 2020. At least his favorite book that I made him read.
No, I think I picked it as my favorite book overall.
So based on all that, we decided that we were going to have another read through a Mistborn book. So as this is book 2 of a 3-book series, first things first, right away there are spoilers. So turn away now if you haven't read any of the books. But if you have read the books and it's just been a very long time, as always, I'm here to provide a little bit of a summary to get you caught up so you can be involved in the discussion. This is a difficult book to summarize, as there are many different threads that are happening all at the same time, so I will try to sum them up as best I can. It centers around the events that happen in Luthadel after the events of the first book. Luthadel, now under the control of Ellen Venture and his council, are trying to gain control of the central dominance. Unfortunately, the Atium, the thing that gave the Final Empire all its wealth, is nowhere to be found, and so the city, among other things, is struggling with making ends meet, paying for the armies and the things that they need to keep themselves safe. All at the same time, 3 armies decide to approach Luthadel to try to take over. This includes Ellen's own father, Set, a king from the Western Dominance, and an army of Kolos, the massive blue, brutish creatures that basically are known for destroying everything and anything. All the while, Vin is also trying to defend Ellen from any attacks, with, of course, the help of Orsur, the Kandra who has a contract to help Vin. However, while they are trying to defend, they discover there is another Kandra somewhere in their midst, and they try to investigate subtly to find who or what has been replaced. All the while, Sazed is led by Marsh to a ministry stronghold, where they discover an engraving that gives them a little bit more insight into what the deepness was, and why the Lord Ruler was fighting against it. And all the while, also, Tindwyl arrives in the Central Dominance, where she tries to train Elend into being a better king, so that he can rule and make the country work, as he has given up a lot of his authority to the council. As I said, Vin was trying to defend Elend from various attacks, including from Zane. Zane was the Mistborn under Straff Venture's control. Well, control is a phrase taken pretty lightly in this case. Zane spends most of the book trying to convince Vin that she doesn't belong there, that she doesn't belong with Elend, that she should run away with him, and they should just leave everything together. Eventually, she makes her decision, and she decides that Zane doesn't trust her, where Elend clearly does, and she fights against Zane and killing Zane. As things grow worse and worse in the city, Straff Venture decides to withdraw, and so does Set, but this opens the opportunity for the Kolos to attack. Using a bit of deception, the old crew deceive Vin and Elend and get them to leave the town. They start heading north towards where they think the Well of Ascension is, and unfortunately, they are wrong. And they realize this as the Kolos begin to attack. Upon realizing that the Kolos are attacking, Vin rushes back to Luthadel, saves the city, and then marches back towards the Old Lord Ruler's palace, where she finds where the Well of Ascension was all the time. She takes the power into herself, and then a Mistwraith, a being who has been looming around her the entire book, decides to act. The Mistwraith stabs Elend, hoping that Vin would use the power of the well to save him. But instead, believing in the rubbing that Sazed had taken from the ministry, she lets go of the power, trying to make the world right, but instead releasing some entity. The Mistwraith leads Vin into finding a small bead, which she uses to save Elend. But now, this new being is released, so many of their friends have died, Elend is made emperor over the Central Dominance, and the world's a whole lot more confusing. So, Nate, I know you have feelings about this one.
In general, I liked it.
Okay.
I was frustrated by the ending, I think.
You were frustrated by the ending. Okay.
But I believe, and you haven't given me any hints, so I'm kind of still guessing. Although some of the comments made by one of our coworkers who's read these books too has me doubting this faith. Well, let me say it this way, I guess. My faith is that I will at least have some of my questions answered by the next book. I was kind of hoping to have all of my questions answered after the next book.
You will have many of your answers given to you by the next book.
Okay.
Our coworker has expressed a distaste for some of the choices that are made in the next book,
Okay.
but answers are given in the next book.
Answers are given.
Whether or not you like the answers, they are given in the next book.
And I guess let's start there, because actually I do like that this book moves things around pretty nicely, especially in the characters, right? Even in the secondary characters, they get moved around very nicely. For instance, actually, well, let me start with one that doesn't, I think, get moved around very nicely, I think, is Duxon. I think he's given a bit short shrift. He's looked down a little bit upon by not having any special powers, by being one in the group. And, Ellen thinks low of him and is suspicious of him, and then he dies. So I think he's one of the ones that gets a bit short shrift in this book. But many of the others, I think, get really nice, even to the extent of Spook. Let me start with him. I think that his character advances very nicely in this book. We know about him from the first book. He's the helper. But through this book, he has his own journey of acceptance of his powers. So I think that's quite nice. He loses his accent, which is still hilarious, to speak clearly, which I wonder what's actually written. Listening to the audiobook, his accent is hilarious when it's read out loud. I wonder if that's what it's written like in the book.
I will tell you that when you read it in a book, it is almost illegible. It is that hard to read.
Okay. The guy who's doing the reading is doing it very well, I think.
Yeah, he is.
Another one I think I really appreciated learning more about in this book was Breeze. I think his character was very nicely fleshed out. There was a lot of things, especially at the end of the book, where they've taken in the refugees and he's just sitting in there soothing. I liked hearing inside his head from what the author was trying to portray of his character and his thoughts and his struggles and how he likes to move things along.
I personally love hearing from inside Breeze's head because he is a character who definitely puts up this front of being all about himself when he's definitely not. The fact that you just see him go, he sees this person, he touches this part of their emotions, and it's just like how observational he is about all these different people and the parts of their lives that he makes better just by seeing what they need in that moment. So I really love how observational he is and how thoughtful he is and how he just is that kind of person. So yeah, no, I really like his character.
Yep, I think you're right. You're definitely putting to words what I was feeling. And I think to me also that he often portrays a feeling of apathy when he really is caring. That I think is cool. So anyway, those were some of the medium ones. I think let's get to the big thing that I hate the most before we get to the things that I really like the best.
What did you hate the most?
I think I hated the most how the end of the book changes everything that you are reading for the past 20 hours. Right? It's like, you're going to rip it all away? The carving was wrong?
Well, the carving wasn't wrong, but what we saw on the carving was wrong.
Yeah, well, still, right? Like, okay, so this thing has that much power to deceive you from that far away? Deceive a rubbing? And who's the one ripping the pages? Okay, so here's the question. Were those sections of the page ripped because they actually said what was actually there? And they wanted to rip that section of the page away so that...
I know what you're getting at, and I'm trying to see how much I can feel comfortable saying without giving too much away.
My guess is that the thing that was in the well, I'm guessing he probably controls people to make pages rip. That's the only thing I can think. Anyway.
Well, keep in mind that there were really two mysterious entities.
Yeah, the Mist Wraith. But the Mist Wraith, whose motivations are still fairly unclear. He wants to save Elend, but anyway. But still, I'm disappointed that the central thing was deception. That's what I didn't like that. And I want to know the motivations of Marsh. I did not like that was not really explained either. Marsh was very weird in this book.
So I'm going to tell you that is answered in the next book.
Okay.
That one is answered in the next book, what is going on there. I will also say the Mist Wraith, Vin says, why did the Mist Wraith stab Elend? She actually asks that. And do you remember what her conclusion was?
No.
Her conclusion was that the Mist Wraith had stabbed Elend so that she would be tempted to heal him using the power.
Oh, yeah. Right. I remember, yeah. So that she wouldn't give up the power, so that she'd keep it for herself, too.
So she wouldn't give up the power, because in giving up the power, it freed this other being. So that then gives you some indications on...
Right, so it was trying to keep what was hidden below. Anyway.
And all those sort of things are answered, or at least addressed in the next book.
Okay. Well, and I guess here's my question then. Are they necessary? I'm like, wouldn't it have been just as powerful if Sazed and Tynwell were just misinterpreting thing? Like, wouldn't that have been as powerful? Why did
it have to be a lie?
Yeah.
Why did it have to be all about a deceit?
Yeah.
Because of the build-up that it makes for book 3.
For the book 3. For the build-up. Is it just to make a cliffhanger?
It is not just for a cliffhanger, but what happens in book 3 is contingent upon that.
As long as it's going to be used in book 3, and it's not like, we lied to you just to lie to you, or just
Nope. It is specifically to be used in book 3.
Okay. That, I think I was just like, wow, just make it so that they interpreted it wrong. You know what I mean?
It is not just them pulling the, it was all a dream.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. There is a purpose for it. I have things I want to say, but if I say too much, I will give too much away.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go back to things we like.
Yeah.
I really liked, well, of course, I thought it was Orsur the whole time, but I really liked the whole Khandra discussions. I liked that growing relationship. Now, I guess it was with Tensoon, not really with Orsur, but I really did like that friendship as it grew. Because that was one of my thoughts, too. Because I think they mentioned it in the previous book that she really didn't like Orsur. Why did she have to keep him and accept him? And I kept thinking, too, like, yeah, just use him. He's useful. Why do you push him away? You know, and I liked that she then strove to become his friend. I think that was good. And even if it was with Tensoon and not really Orsur, I don't think that matters too much. I guess why I don't think it matters too much is because I think it paid off in the end. I think Tensoon helped her while still keeping his contract, threw out a hint there for her to pick up so that she wouldn't die. If that didn't happen, if Tensoon just stood there and sat and watched as she would have probably died, then yeah, maybe I wouldn't have liked it so much. But I guess because it was somewhat reciprocated later on, I guess maybe that's why it was rewarding. That's one of the relationships I liked the most. I think Vin and Elend's relationship, while it made strides, especially because he became a Mistborn at the end. That's definitely going to finally fix all her worries about loving somebody who's not a Mistborn. Maybe I should have saw that coming, because, oh my goodness. Now it's like, oh God, I guess that's foreshadowing, isn't it now? You're supposed to think, she's going to fall for Zane because she wants to fall for a Mistborn. She's going to fall for Zane. And note, by the end of the book, Elend becomes a Mistborn. So now we're okay. Everything's okay now.
See, for me, it was the same divide that she's always had. The divide between, is she a ska thief or is she a noble? What is she? How does she see herself? And that whole deciding between Zane and Elend was which part of her is she going to embrace? Is it going to be the violent self, or is it going to be the self that is aiming to protect?
Right.
That is where that comes down. So, yeah, he got elementic powers at the end, but for me, it's not like, he had to have elementic powers for her to feel fully comfortable, because by the time that he got that, she had seemed to get over all that. She had left those uncertainties behind, because she had accepted, you know what, even if I don't fully ever understand him and he doesn't fully understand me, we still love and care for each other. So I didn't feel like, of course he's going to become a Mistborn.
It didn't hit me until it happened. But.
And for me, that's why I'm like, yeah, he gets those powers, but I mean...
All right, lastly, I think my favorite thing was the politics and the strategy. And I think as much as the previous book, we kept calling it the altruistic heist. This one, the plot is centering around these politics and strategy things. And I think they played pretty well. I think it could have been a lot more boring. In fact, I almost think that sometimes the politics and strategy discussions were more fun than the fighting discussions. She jumped off this wall and bounced off this thing and hit him with this and pulled off this thing. In some ways, that was more written as this, then this, then this, then this, then this. The fights were more boring because of that than the whole politics discussions and the strategy discussions. Because now Set's here, they're going to do this. Or let's get rid of Set, blah, blah, blah. Interestingly, I think the politics discussion was more fun. So
I enjoyed both parts. I will say that I genuinely enjoy trying to like outthink your opponents and trying to think around, and I'm naturally drawn to those sort of discussions, but I did like both.
It didn't subtract from me, which I think is one of the things that I'm surprised about, is that the layers upon layers of armies, okay, well, now that we've got this, things are like this, and now that we've got this, things are like this. I think the layers upon layers of that stuff, I thought would deter me or push me away. And, even the fact like, Alrion is pushing her father to do things, and, all of those layers, I thought they would scare me away more or think it more boring. But I think in general, I think it added to it. I think that's why it's surprising to me, is that, I found it interesting. Okay, now Set's going to return, okay, now this is going to happen. Now Stratventure is being poisoned again. What does that mean? Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I think that was quite fun. I think, maybe Zane's stuff kind of bored me a little bit, but...
Yeah, I can see where it comes from.
But I think the strategies and stuff, in the discussions they had as the team or things like that, I think they were actually still pretty fun. So I was surprised to think that if the central plot is these policy and strategic discussions, as opposed to how are we going to steal the final empire back, I think these worked out pretty well. And I was surprised by that. I thought I would be bored with trade negotiations.
What are you talking about? Don't you know about the electric world of statecraft?
I think maybe one of the things that made it exciting was Ellen's doggedness to continue to do the right thing, right? Even when he gets voted out, right? He doesn't always take the cheap shots, and that he yet again loses his chance to become king because he sticks to the rules.
Yep, which is also very interesting because at the very end, in addition to everything else, because of what Vin had done, the council is not in power anymore, and it's just, he's just ruling now because everybody has sworn fealty to him.
I enjoyed it. I think it definitely has the I think you said it too, it has the whole middle book thing where we're not getting everything answered.
It is a very good middle book, but because it is a middle book, you can anticipate that nothing is going to get answered.
The story moved along. Not at a breakneck pace, but things moved along. And I mean, in some ways, it's the day in the life of Vin, right? It's more snapshot than it is story. Because I guess the story is the whole story arc, not just each book.
I felt like for me, this story was really focused on two things. Number one, yes, the statecraft that we have talked about, like the statecraft and the strategy and the outsmarting your opponents. But also, it largely was a character development story. Seeing all these characters that we've seen before and how they are growing, especially with having to step up and be the people who have to deal with responsibility. I mean, you talked about like Doxson getting the short stick. Even him, who barely got anything, he had two really good scenes. One where Vin went up to him and they had a conversation where he was being boring, according to Vin, because he was wrestling with the fact that he had to either admit that he was a monster or deal with the amount of guilt that he had, which was very interesting to me. But in addition to that, he also had that scene right before he died where he was also coming to grips with all that, where he was just like, we could have gone out and completely killed off every noble, but we would have lost our souls doing it. We could have done it, but we would have lost everything that we had fought for to do it.
Right. It would have been truly revolutionary coming back to the beginning, as opposed to evolutionary trying to move on to the brighter future that he was proposing, even if they were still ruled by fear, unfortunately.
So yeah, even though he didn't get a whole big part, he did have great character growth, even in the little bits that he did get. And so I think that for me, this story was largely about those two things. It was about character growth, and it was about the statecraft. More than any of the fighting, more than any of the posturing and all of that stuff, it was about those two things. Watching these characters we've seen before, and watching how they are growing in needing to deal with being now responsible for tons of people's lives, and in addition to that, seeing how they deal with the world basically being poised against them. So, yeah. Like I said, it's a great middle book.
Yeah, I'm excited to read the next one. I mean, I guess because I do want to know the answers, but also because it is now a comfortable universe to visit again.
So, Nate, what do you have for me next time?
Next time, let's go on our adventure again through Star Trek Next Generation. This time we're going to pick it up with Season 2, Episode 8, which is A Matter of Honor. It's a Klingon episode, so let's take a look at that. As far as I can remember, it's a pretty good Season 2 episode, but it's been a while since I've seen it, so I'm going to be enjoying it again as well.
Sounds good to me. Now, we do hope you found something nice about this hill that we were willing to die on, and we appreciate all of our listeners coming along on this journey with us. And if you've ever thought to yourself, hey, these guys are okay, I could really, support them in some way, and I'd love to do it in some way, shape, or form. Well, guess what? Now you can. Visit us at myhilltodieon.com/members for more details. But the conversation, it doesn't have to end here. The discussion can continue with us at Reddit at r/myhilltodieon, or by contacting us through Twitter at myhilltodieon, or, emailing us at, what was it again? Oh, yes, myhilltodieon@gmail.com. And finally, we do upload all of our episodes to our YouTube channel, which is, surprising no one, My Hill to Die On.